Berserk chapter 370. Final chapter of the Fantasia arc and the end of Elfhelm. Now, to couple things I just have to put out. My last video, I talked about my lack of enthusiasm about the structure of the most recent chapter. Now, I'm just going to quickly state I didn't hate the chapter. I thought it was not the best of the most recent. And I will still say, because a lot of people were upset about this and a couple protesters, I love Berserk and I'm enjoying these chapters, and I think Mori and the team at Studio Gaga are doing great work. I just have to say it. I don't want them to stop. I want them to continue. I want them to grow and get better. I just think one of the things that really irked me about, not the events of the last chapter. In fact, I thought the events of the last chapter made perfect sense. I enjoyed a lot about the events of the last chapter. I just didn't like the structure of the last chapter. Another thing I just have to disclaim is that for some reason after the last chapter, because of a lot of the characters disappearing who were of magical value, a lot of people were exclaiming about how Puck and Evil Air were going to disappear. And somehow this panel right here, people thought this was Puck disappearing in front of Guts. To which I had a little, I had a little thought about that in this stream here, where I basically said that there was no reason to believe that Puck disappeared, because on what earth would the writers and Koji Mori make disappear and get rid of one of the most prominent characters since the beginning of the series without us seeing it, in a panel? So I just want to say that this chapter kind of starts with Puck, to which I just want to say, sometimes some of you, the MCU fan in you guys, kind of just comes running out the gate where you're just like, what does that mean? Oh, what is that? That's the piece of glitter, that one piece of glitter in that one panel. Holy shit. Oh my God. I just want to say that you're reading into shit too much sometimes, guys. So I enjoy your enthusiasm, but regardless of that, let's talk about the chapter as a whole. Now, pretty much the chapter begins with a lot of the refugees of the island getting onto Roderick's boat. We see finally all our characters reunite, which I am very happy about. We finally have a moment of Serpico seeing Farnese, Shirke, Isidro, all that sort of stuff, and seeing how many refugees on this boat, how many of them are actually injured. We don't see what happened to Skull Knight, which is pretty normal. He just, he disappears, he does his thing. I will just say, with the consensus of this chapter, I'm extremely happy. I feel like this chapter really does bank on the effects of what just happened. Farnese is extremely distraught that she couldn't do anything to stop Griffith. Same with Shirke, which I guess maybe plays in a bit to why people confuse that they just let that happen. I think they were just pretty much stunned and overwhelmed by someone as powerful as Griffith, who, Guts phased through. They couldn't really do anything. And I think Isidro is also shocked at how distraught Farnese and Shirke are that they couldn't do anything. It's a real moment where you feel like the characters all have this effect of, what do we do? We're all sharing in that trauma, which is awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was cool to see the characters who we've been with for a while actually sharing the same trauma. They all have their own baggage and their own problems, but seeing them share trauma, and it's the same kind, something else completely different. Mulder finally makes her reappearance, so it shows that a lot of the magical imbued characters did survive and didn't disappear. So the witches, the wizards, all those guys. And it's cool to see them all on the boat, and she's trying to get Farnese to be a bit more helpful and actually help, take care of the injured, which is cool. It's somewhat out of character for Mulder, but I guess we don't know her too much to know of her moral value. So it is cool to see that she's like, yeah, come on, get out of that rut, get on your feet and start helping. And Farnese is like, yeah, all right, let's do it. I gotta say, these panels of Farnese are probably my favorites. One of my favorites of this chapter. You guys know I'm a big Farnese fan. I won't lie, I care about my girl. I care about my girl quite a lot. Cool. Shirke offers to help, but Mulder tells her that her priority is to be with Guts and sort him out, because he was brought in by the sailors who got him off the shore. And apparently he was mumbling like a broken man. And I'm like, oh man, that's crazy that she said it like that, a broken man. Something that I think you would never really hear about Guts as someone being broken. Shirke needs to go make sure that he is somewhat stable in his mindset, because if he is left to go berserk from his trauma or loses himself mentally, then that berserk armor could be a very dangerous problem for the people on this ship. So she goes to make sure that that is taken care of. As Shirke leaves, she glances at Isidro, which is a really cool moment, I guess, just to notice that she cares that he's, in this pain. And Isidro's clearly still dealing with that. He doesn't really say anything for most of the chapter, which is rare of Isidro, right? He's lost someone he cares about, and you think Isidro wanting to be this big swordsman is like not used to that. Really can't wait for more of his development. Roderick is told that we've got as much as the people we can get, all that sort of stuff. We lost a lot of cargo, and he learns that Guts has been put in a room by himself. So Shirkei comes running, and Roderick's banging on the door, and we finally see some of these great panels of Guts staring at the Dragon Slayer. Now, again, a lot of people said that Guts can't be broke, and I was really hoping this would happen maybe a chapter or two or maybe more earlier, but I wanted to see Guts at his lowest possible, and I think this is the beginning of his real dip before hopefully a great high in storytelling of getting over this next step of conflict for Guts. He falls to his feet, he falls to the ground looking at the Dragon Slayer, and is just a broken man. Like Mulder said, a broken man. He just slumps to the floor, and the Dragon Slayer thuds to the ground. It's a great sequence of images, and we get that window into Guts' psyche, and we see panels from the Golden Age. And this is something that you kind of always knew about Guts. He always had his sword. Always had his sword with him. When he was asleep, when he was in battle, when he was alone, when he was training, he always had his sword. Not the sword he has now, but a sword, the sword. Sword in his heart, the sword that he carried, his will. And he says, all this time, when I couldn't depend on anything else, anyone else, when I had nothing, I still had your strength to hold on to. The sword that represents his will. It was all he had. And this sequence of chapters really encapsulates that the Dragon Slayer, or just the sword that Guts has in his hands, the sword in his heart, the will that he has as a man who never gives up, couldn't even hit the one man that ruined so much of his life. Showing that no matter how hard he fought, regardless of how much he fought, regardless of how much that sword kept him alive when he had no one, when there was no one to care about him, regardless, the sword essentially betrayed him. The sword, even when he was fighting enemies who could easily defeat him, he always had a sword that he could attack with, and it would always hit something. It may not slice the first time, but if he kept with it, he would get through. He would win. You know, he would defeat his enemy and he would slice through. And with his sword, the only thing he knew how to do, the only thing he knows how to do is to fight. That's it. That's all he knows how to do. And now he's just fought his sworn enemy, and the sword did nothing. The sword did nothing. It couldn't protect Casca. It couldn't defeat his mortal enemy. It couldn't get him the revenge he wanted. It couldn't do anything. Nothing. And it was all he had. If you don't have companions, don't have friends, you don't have a goal, at least he had his sword. And now that failed him. This is, I think, compared to maybe the first Mori chapter and maybe the second one, I think this might be possibly my favorite chapter, hands down. Like, I loved every moment of this chapter, seeing the possibility of the Berserker armor taking hold of a depressed man, seeing all the characters finally reunite together, and not in a happy way, in a very traumatic way. Farnese knowing that she couldn't do anything, she still feels useless. She feels as useless as she was when she was trying to take care of Casca back in the woods, even though she knows she's stronger now, but now feels useless again. Shirkei, again, feels like she couldn't do anything either. And she's the one who is meant to be the teacher, the master, and she couldn't do anything to save Casca from Griffith. You know, Serpico notices this. He feels the shift in tone. Isidro is someone who doesn't speak. He doesn't make a joke. He's not there to create an extremely helpful light vibe, or at least lift up the spirits of anyone, or at least fight back against the trauma and the depression of everyone. Every character is at a low point now. And this is so great. And this is what I wanted very soon. And I'm very happy that we finally got it, is a moment where in stories, you have to have the characters challenged to the point where they are at their lowest. I don't know in terms of Guts' life, this is the lowest. It might be because through whatever problem he faced, whether being a victim of sexual assault, an abused child soldier, someone who was condemned to death by a curse, he always had a sword to fight back with. He killed his assaulter. He killed the people who tried to kill him. He survived through a harsh world with the sword. He was able to survive 2 years being branded by a curse. He always had the sword. And this time it failed him. I am so excited for the next chapter. This was so good. Like, this is the stuff I love about Berserk. The moments I see in terms of the character. The moments where Guts is challenged, and sometimes he succeeds and sometimes he kind of fails, but he's always being able to be brought back up. This is a perfect call to action in the story for the companions to rally. I don't know which character it's going to be to rally all of them together to get up and try again, because Guts might feel like, what's the point? And I think that's what Roderick and all the others are worried about, is that, is he going to try and kill himself? You would never, I don't think anyone pre-Mori era would ever think that Guts would consider suicide or consider laying down and giving up, because every time he's ever laid down, he always got back up. When he was a child, when he was an adult, after he was cursed and lost his arm, he always got back up and fought. This is the first time where, how does he gonna get back up when his own will is kind of diminished? There has to be someone to unite them all together, to give them a common goal and try again, because if this man isn't willing to pick up his own sword, you know, everyone has a limit. I said this in the last 2 chapter videos. Every character has their limit. Guts is a man. He is a human, and he has an indomitable will, but he still has a limit. And I think this is the first time we saw him hit that limit, where the one thing that he could always count on, I know I'm saying it again and again, but this is such a big deal. And again, why I think it's one of the best chapters recently, probably my favorite, that it failed him. I don't know what's going to happen next. I can't wait to figure out what's going to happen next. I want to see the characters try and get themselves out of this rut. You'd be thinking I should be depressed at what just happened. I'm excited because now the story really has a call to action. On Elfhelm, we were pretty happy, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the happy moments. I enjoyed the solace because these characters deserved it after everything they went through. But now, having lost it all, makes me really feel like there has to be something that can bring them together to get them out, because that's what Berserk's about. It's trying to find your way, trying to see through the fog, regardless of the shit that's thrown at you. And all these characters now have just been dealt a shit hand. And I think it's going to be cool to see the characters that Guts has created a relationship with take his mentality that he's imbued with them and try and use it to lift him back up. Because Guts is not alone anymore. You know, he's been at rock bottom, but usually when he hit rock bottom, he was always alone. He was alone after the eclipse. He didn't have anyone to share that trauma with. But now they've all lost someone. They've all lost something. Collectively, they've lost a place that taught them something. Isidro has lost a person close to him, dear to him. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm very excited. I don't want to theorize too much because I feel like there's a lot that I could theorize that I've already theorized in previous videos with other locations, etc. But I'm very happy with this chapter. I think the artwork and the panels, you know, it's still great. Like, I did criticize a lot in the previous video chapter about the quality in terms of the detail seen in a lot of chapters. And I still stand by that, but I think it's just getting used to the Mori Studio Gaga style that is cemented right now. And I do think a lot of these panels are great, like the Golden Age bonfire panel I love. I still think that regardless of this style being slightly different to what is normally accepted of what Miura could do, right? Because no one could do what he did, and I know that. But seeing these panels really makes me realize that, you know what, even though they're not Miura panels, some of these panels are a lot better than any kind of current manga ongoing now in terms of the detail, in terms of the paneling, the use of structure, the structure of them. I think, again, what makes me love this chapter a lot more is that the structure is there. And I think that was my issue, again, with the previous chapter, is that the structure didn't make a whole lot of sense for what was happening. The events made sense, don't get me wrong. I'm going to say it again because a lot of people don't understand this when I say it. The events of the last chapter made sense. The events of the chapter were needed for the story. Those terrible things had to happen. I'm glad that we got something really bad happen. It sounds awful. I'm glad something bad happened in the story because you need conflict, right? But it was structured in a way that felt rushed and it felt like it wasn't fully realized. This was the chapter that made me feel, oh, all of that really did happen because I am now seeing the aftermath of all those characters experiencing this and dealing with it. And I think that was the juice that was missing. Now, I imagine reading all of these chapters in one big slump because now the Fantasia arc is over, it might have the perfect effect of reading them all one after the other. I might do that. I might do that and recontextualize myself. Again, very happy. I think, regardless of my criticisms of the last chapter, there hasn't been a chapter that I hated. I wouldn't say hate is a word I would use ever for a Berserk chapter, unless it was something so ridiculous and completely out of nowhere. And so far that's not happened at all, and I don't think it will. So those are my thoughts, guys. I will continue to make a video pretty much for every chapter unless it starts to take a toll. But the next chapter isn't going to come out next month. It's coming out December 9th, which makes me feel like I imagine it might have something to do with maybe the work schedule of the studio. Who knows? We don't know, but I do really hope that that means the next arc is a real new chapter for the Berserk story, and they're taking their time to make sure that the introduction of a new arc and its name, everything about it, is really thought well and taken their time to present to everyone, and I guess be happy with it themselves. But let me know what you guys think. Again, tell me, did you like this chapter? Did you not? I did a vote before recording this video, and it seems 75% of 379 people at that time were very happy with it. So I'm glad to see that the community is still very positive in terms of the chapters. Yeah, I'd be pretty upset if a lot of people thought it was crap. I've noticed a lot of people have decided to not read every month and decide to just wait until a bunch are out and then read them all at once, which, you know, possibly I might do in the future if these videos become quite time consuming. But as of now, I'm still enjoying every chapter, so I think I'll probably keep making a video for every chapter. That's all from me. Again, tell me what you guys think in the comments. Tell me what you think is going to happen. You really like this chapter, etc. But if you made it to the end, I appreciate you for watching. Thank you very much. If you want to like, subscribe again, I'd appreciate it. That's all from me, guys. My name's Mugen. As always, have a good one.